Hello and welcome to the office of the Mayor of Caledon. I'm Irene Karasavidis. Today we're getting to know the Mayor herself, Marolyn Morrison. Hello Mayor, thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming.
So what is your political background and how did you become Mayor?
Well, I was very, very involved in my community. We have 3 sons and I was involved at the school, the church, and sports. And one thing just led to another, and some of the parents talked me into running for school board trustee. So that was back in '88. I did that. Was successful, went down to the appeal board and represented Caledon for 6 years, 2 terms, became vice chair of the appeal board my last 2 years. So decided that maybe I would try my hand at municipal politics, the real thing. And so ran for regional councillor, and I beat the incumbent, and that was kind of the beginning of it all.
What are the advantages of being a mayor to a small town as opposed to a larger city?
I think sometimes, well, the advantage, I mean, look around Caledon, it's an absolutely beautiful place to live, to raise your children, to have your family, and to work. So we have all the amenities here, so it's a wonderful place. It's a small town. And Caledon is made up of many communities of communities, so we have small villages, we have medium-sized villages, hamlets, and then we have our larger area, which is Bolton. And so you have a variety of lifestyles that you can choose from to live in Caledon. So it's such a wonderful, wonderful experience.
What has been some of your what has been your greatest accomplishment so far as mayor?
I think the greatest accomplishment is building the team and having, I mean, council is elected by the people. You don't get to choose your team you work with. So I think that getting the team to all understand the vision and go down the same path and move forward together as a unit is extremely important in order to be able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish.
That must be really difficult. How do you even begin something like that?
I think by gaining their trust, by letting them see what kind of a leader you are, and then they want to be there with you. And I think it's really important when you are the leader, but then this would be my management style, that you're not autocratic, that you bring people along with you, that you work with people, you applaud their accomplishments, that you're not feeling insecure or afraid to tell someone they're great in front of others. I think that's really important. And then people start to realize that you're not doing this for selfish motives or doing the job because you're trying to get something out of it. What you want out of it is what is best for all the people because you're committed to making a difference.
What are some of your personal goals you wish to accomplish before term runs out?
Well, we actually have been moving down the road on everything that I said we would do. I said that we would streamline our processes at the town of Caledon because we had become very cumbersome and bureaucratic. If you have a piece of property and you have the right, and you're not doing anything illegal, but you have the right to develop on it and to build a house or an addition or a deck or put the pool in, we should make it as easy as possible for you to do that. We should not put up roadblocks and make it difficult. So for me, one of the key things was streamlining those processes. Another was our ratio of employment lands and industrial commercial to residential was way too low, which shifts the burden of taxes onto the residential. And I want people to be able to retire here. I want young people, like I have sons, I'd like them to be able to buy a house here and grow their family in this community. So we have to increase our economic development employment lands. So that was a key thing for me. And I hope that the residents understand why. If we grow that sector, not only do we have a tax base, which stabilizes our residential tax base, but we also can live and work in our community. And we're not driving for hours, not being with our family because we're on the road. It just makes a healthy community. So that was very important for me. And we've managed to do that. And we've done that because council also realizes the advantage and the value of doing that. And we have created an economic development and communications department. Council was wonderful at supporting that. We have hired a manager of economic development and communications. He has great experience out there and from other sectors and other municipalities. And we're moving forward, increasing our employment lands so that people will be able to live and work here, and will increase our assessment.
What are the qualities of a good mayor?
I think a good mayor is what I would see as a good leader. And I think a good leader has to have, you have to be able to listen to people, and you have to be able to cut underneath and figure out what the problems really are so that you can be a good problem solver. That doesn't mean that you can give everybody everything they want. You can't. You have to be able to say no. But what you can do is you can get to what the real issue is and try and solve that issue. I think that you have to have a vision, and you have to be able to inspire others with your vision so that they want to come along with you and be part of that, and part of the solution, and part of finding a solution for the community. And we have a wonderful group of councillors that I have the opportunity of working with and imparting my vision, and we're going down that road, so I think it's very positive.
What's been your favorite accomplishment so far? Your greatest moment?
I think there's a whole pile of them, but one thing I'm really happy with is I started a Mayor's Youth Council, and we have 20 young people aged 14 to 19 from the various secondary schools within Caledon. They come together, and what I had them do is run for mayor, clerk, CAO, councillors, treasurer, economic development manager, and so they take on those roles. And to me, in the past, we would make decisions at the town, and it was adults giving the input all the time. And we have wonderful volunteers within the town of Caledon. People are volunteering all the time. It's outstanding. But we didn't have a lot of youth giving us input. And here we are, a young, vibrant community, and we need to meet the needs of our youth. But it was adults deciding what those needs are. And I think that's the wrong way to go. I think we need the input from the kids so that they tell us what they think they need. Sometimes you have to temper it a little, of course, and you have to be realistic, and I tell them that too. We have to be realistic when we're looking at things, and we give them the opportunity of looking at budgets and trying to figure out how we can get to where we want to be. What a great learning experience for young people. Looks great on their resume. They can use that as their 40 hours of volunteer work that is required by the time they graduate from high school. Plus, they actually get to learn while they're going along. And another good thing is they'll vote when they get older. And I don't mean for me. I mean because I probably won't. Maybe I won't even be in office by the time they have the opportunity of voting. But they will want to be involved in the political process, and there's too much apathy, and there won't be from these young people. So I think it's just such a positive.
It's important to mobilize young people, so the response has been really good to that program.
Terrific. My assistant Jennifer is outstanding at, the kids can relate to her. And, you know, maybe me, they go, oh, the old mayor, you know. But with Jennifer, they, you know, they really relate to her, and so I think it's great. It's just terrific.
Can you run through a typical day?
Typical day in the life of the mayor. Well, I'll give you today for an example. I got to the office this morning at a little after 8 o'clock. I worked for a little bit until 9. I had meetings at 9. Actually, I went out and did corporate visits with our economic development manager. And we do, every couple of weeks, we go out and do corporate visits. We visit some of our businesses. We visited 2 this morning. It took until a little after 12 to do 2. And what we do is we go in and we talk to them. I want the businesses in Caledon to know that we know how important they are to this municipality, both as a tax base and as an employer. And they contribute so much to the community. I mean, if we have some kind of a fundraiser going on, they're the first there to contribute. So I want them to know that we think they're valuable. I also want to know what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. So if there's something that drives them crazy about the town of Caledon, I want to know that. If we're doing something well, I want to know that so we can build on it. So it's a very positive experience, and we hear both sides. So it's good.
What's happening in terms of business improvement in Caledon?
Well, when Caledon is made up of small villages all over the place, throughout the whole town, and the town is over 700 square kilometers, so it's quite large. In fact, I think it's the largest municipality. It's larger than Toronto, believe it or not. The area mass, of course not population, we only have about 57,000 people, but area mass, very, very large. And so each small community has their own distinctiveness, and they want to keep that. So to say business improvement, I would say through economic development, we are making sure that we are doing what we need to do for our clients, the businesses, the residents, to make sure that they are prosperous and that they are going to stay in the town of Caledon. So,
what about in terms of infrastructure and housing?
Infrastructure is difficult in Caledon because almost 50% of our traffic in Caledon is flow through. In other words, it originates outside of Caledon and just drives through Caledon. It seems today that the attitude out there with drivers is that as soon as they get out of their own neighborhood, they can put the pedal to the metal and, you know, gee, it's not going to affect my home. And that is a real shame, because whether you live on a side road in Caledon or whether you live in a village or hamlet in Caledon, it's a community. Our side roads, severances were allowed years ago, where you could have 3 severances per 100. So our side roads pretty well have all those severances taken off. So we have communities throughout our side roads, which are viable communities. And so it's infrastructure is a biggie, because we don't get provincial dollars anymore to work on it. We have approximately 150 bridges in Caledon, because we're the headwaters of the Humber River, we're the headwaters of the Etobicoke Creek and the Credit River, and we no longer get provincial dollars to repair, fix, or rebuild these bridges. So it's a huge burden on the average residential taxpayer. And so infrastructure is a huge problem for any small municipality, even a medium-sized. And I think if you looked at some of the larger municipalities that are growing very fast, they have managed to be able to get the development charge dollars in to do a lot of the infrastructure. But ask, what are you going to do in the future when you no longer have those dollars coming in? How are you going to maintain your infrastructure, and how are you going to replace it? Unless you have reserves that are building. Most don't have the reserves. So infrastructure is a tough one. I know what I'd like to tell the government to do to fix it, but it is tough.
Okay, hold that thought, Mayor. We'll be back right after this short break. We're talking to the Mayor of Caledon. We're back talking to Mayor Morrison. Mayor, what other challenges do you face in terms of infrastructure?
Well, I've already talked about the road situation and how we have such a huge liability there with all of the flow-through traffic, plus our own traffic. I would say transportation. I mean, when I get out there talking to people, transportation is a huge problem. And it's a problem in our infrastructure funding. The other part that goes along with that is our bridges. We used to get funding from the province of Ontario for all of our bridges. And being the headwaters, as I said earlier, for the Humber, the Credit, Etobicoke Creek, we do not get the money for the bridges anymore. And yet we are supposed to maintain, keep them up, replace them. Well, we have approximately 150 bridges, and we probably have about a $60 to $70 million liability on bridges. How can you expect our residential tax base to pay for that? It's absolutely unrealistic. And I think the province of Ontario has to come to the table and help us out there. So that's just the infrastructure and the roads to get people from place to place, being a rural area. But you also have your infrastructure, your buildings, all of that sort of thing, and trying to maintain all of these buildings in all of the different locations throughout the town of Caledon on a limited assessment base.
With the neighboring cities reaching close to their limits, what does it mean for Caledon in terms of further growth and how that'll affect the environment?
That's going to be, I think, quite a challenge, and that's going to be huge future pressure for Caledon. And that is going to be one of our biggest challenges in the future. Because once the municipalities around us, especially south of us, are built out, all the developers are looking to Caledon. In Caledon, we're really interesting because we have the Oak Ridges Moraine, we have the Niagara Escarpment, and we have Greenbelt. And then the province has seen fit to leave approximately 30,000 acres of Caledon in the southern part down near Mayfield Road in, I guess, what I call the White Belt, or I hate to say it's future growth, but in the back room we all know it's future growth. And that's very scary for many people because we are very environmentally conscientious in Caledon, and taking care of the environment and, you know, clean water, woodlands, wetlands, very, very important to us. And we value our agricultural community in Caledon, and it's very difficult for them also. And the more traffic you have on the roads, the more difficult it is for the farmer to get from field to field. So we're, in a way, really pushing agriculture out of our municipality by having all of this traffic. The Greenbelt, what it has done is we're going to see a leapfrogging effect, so that you will have people buying north of the Greenbelt because it will be cheaper, and then they will be driving down through the Greenbelt, which is us, to get to employment. And that is going to be a huge problem in the future. Because of the Niagara Escarpment and the way the escarpment goes, it's like the little mountain or the big hill. It's very difficult to get approvals for road networks and transportation in the Niagara Escarpment. So it's not like we can go out tomorrow and build roads. And then the environmentalists are worried, and rightly so. If we build the roads, then they'll all come and use the roads, and then we have more pollution, more environmental problems. I'm working on a program right now called Smart Commute. And what I've done is I've spoken to some of our businesses in the town of Caledon and said, you know, where are your employees coming from? And if we could figure out a way of organizing commute with these, and that would mean that some of the employers would align their starting and closing times so that the employees could all ride together, we could maybe start making a difference here and on our commitment to the Kyoto Accord, and we could get somewhere.
Well, speaking of green, Caledon was named the greenest town in Ontario. What does that mean to Caledon, and who gave you this award?
Well, the award was presented by TV Ontario, and we actually were given the award 2 years in a row. The environmental groups put our name in to TV Ontario for the nomination for the award. I think that it really is a prize for Caledon to be named that. We have phenomenal environmental groups in Caledon, and these are volunteers who have expertise in areas. They come forward, they give of their time, and they move the yardstick for us, and that is phenomenal. In fact, they move the yardstick so much so that excuse me, when I was running for mayor, I thought to myself, how can we continue this? And yet, you know, we have to be practical with it, and we have to use common sense, but how can we continue to move the yardstick, coordinate all the environmental groups, because there's many, and move forward? So I talked with council, and we decided what we needed to do was hire an environmental progress officer, someone who has an environmental background, is committed to the values that Caledon holds dear, and can move us forward and can coordinate it all. And so that is happening, and we're thrilled with where we're going and what's happening. She actually has published, and it's been approved by council, an environmental action plan, and it shows what the town of Caledon and what we should be committed to doing to lessen our air emissions, to there's wind solutions, there's all kinds of things. So it's really positive.
Can you tell us a little bit about Mayfield West?
Certainly can. Mayfield West is designated as one of our growth nodes. The town of Caledon decided that rather than just allow growth anywhere willy-nilly, we would have 3 growth nodes: Bolton, Caledon East, and Mayfield West. Mayfield West is a greenfield growth node. So in other words, there's no village sitting there. It's just productive farm. But each municipality in the province of Ontario has to take a certain amount of people every year. And you are given for your official plans numbers that you have to accommodate. So we have to accommodate a certain number of people. So for the Mayfield West area, it's approximately 14,000 people we have to accommodate. So we have come up with a vision, and our vision is building another hamlet village idea, rather than just allowing developers to throw up a whole pile of houses and call that community. That's not community. And what community is building a village and having a central core for the village and having a place where people come together. I live in a wonderful little village in the town of Caledon, and I mean, we don't know each other in the village by name. We know a lot of people, but everybody does recognize each other and waves to each other and says hello, and we try to respect each other's property, and it's just a wonderful feeling. And I believe the town of Caledon is going to be, I think we're going to be on the map for that kind of thinking when we develop or allow developers to develop. So we had a little bit of a beauty contest between 2 developers, and 1 developer was chosen, and they are moving forward with this vision. And I think it's just going to be phenomenal. It's going to be the place people will want to live, with a Caledon address.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges of working within a region?
Everybody needs to get along. I would say that you need to respect each other. There's always, as there is in the province of Ontario, as there is even in a municipality, there's areas that are affluent or have, and there's areas that don't have as much. But we all need to contribute and respect each other. So I would say at a regional level, when you have the various municipalities, Caledon, we all know, is the rural municipality in the Region Appeal. And the Region Appeal government is an outstanding level of government as far as the way it's been run, managed, the reserves it has, and how it's taking care of itself for the future. We should all take lessons from that. I mean, it's phenomenal. Actually, Caledon is going to be in the same position very soon. We're going to be debt-free in 2006, and borrow from ourselves when we do projects or if we need money, so that we don't owe anybody anything. So I'm happy with that. But that's how the Region Appeal is. But you've got 3 municipalities in the Region Appeal: Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. And the region was formed so that growth would start down at the lake and would slowly move up. Now, when it gets to Caledon, it's sort of not happening, or in a very, very slow, planned, well-planned way. But that's what a region was formed for, so that your social services, your public health, your water and wastewater, your garbage pickup, all of that sort of thing, and regional arterial roads that take people from one place to another could be managed at an upper tier, a larger picture, a vision at that level. And what happens, though, sometimes, is that when one municipality is finished growing, they want to take their marbles and go home. And yet the other municipalities have all contributed and helped to build through financial contributions that other municipality. And so that's what we see in the Region Appeal. And I would like to think that we won't be parochial, that we will continue to work together, because if we really want to save the taxpayers' money, you do not go down into 3 separate divisions again, with 3 separate health departments, 3 separate social services, 3 separate of everything. It's just ludicrous. Instead, if anything, we should probably be going to the bigger. But I don't really want to do that, because I want Caledon to remain a beautiful community like it is, and not to be ruined.
Where do you see Caledon in 10 years?
10 years from now, I would like to think that we will have left a legacy where Caledon will be planned properly with proper phasing in place so that it can't be helter-skelter development, that we have taken into account our environmental stewardship, because it is up to us to protect the environment. And when you stop and think of it, all the protection that we're doing up here in Caledon and all the lands that have basically been frozen by the provincial government, Oak Ridges Moraine, Greenbelt, Niagara Escarpment, as the so-called playground for the populated areas, even though somebody owns that playground, we should be somehow, in my mind, compensated. And the farmers should be compensated for keeping it rural and for keeping it in agriculture, for keeping clean water. Because our rivers are the headwaters. It all goes down to Lake Ontario, and millions of people get their drinking water out of that lake. So the people in the south, who are the urbanites, need to appreciate a community like Caledon, where we really spend a lot of time trying to protect the environment, so that when our water gets down to the lake, it's as pure and clean as we possibly can make it, so that they have really good water to drink. So we're trying to take care of them. We have our forests, which are cleanse the air, keep it cleaner. We try to protect that. We have our wetlands for recharge, to try and keep water in the ground for everyone. You know, there has to be a give and take. And I mean, if we paved over, which we have no intention of ever doing, we certainly wouldn't be able to give them clean water and clean air and food on their table. So I think we all have to appreciate the specialness that we each give.
Right. Well, there are certainly challenges coming up ahead, but the future does look really up for the city of Caledon. This has been an interview with the Mayor of Caledon, Mayor Morrison. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.